This time, we're taking a look at the return of the MCU with Black Widow. And along the way, we ask, why is Scarlett Johansson just now getting a solo film? Is it possible to emotionally invest in a dead character? And how does this movie set up Phase 4? Your podcast only makes you stronger on this edition of Force-Fed Sci-Fi. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Force-Fed Sci-Fi podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Rupp, and I am joined by my friend and co-host,
the Black Widow, Sean Michael Culp.
So you're just going to be the lone male in all of the Black Widows, just creating international havoc then?
Apparently. That's what I went with, Chris. I'm down to give it a shot.
If you don't mind being mind controlled into giving up all of your free will, I mean, sure, go right ahead. You do you. I won't stop you. I will support your endeavors.
Well, here's the thing. What will I know I'm being mind controlled? Huh?
Well, I mean, as they say, ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Well, when you put it like that, you know what? I'm sticking to my guns. I'm going for it. Oh God. Welcome, guys, back to another podcast, Black Widow. Right? This is exciting. We just kind of popped this into the theaters, right? And we decided to talk about it.
Yeah, I know you did the theater route, and I did the premiere access on Disney Plus because I'm still a little anti-theater at the moment. See my previous rant at the end of A Quiet Place Part 2.
That's right, because after that rant, you had such a horrible experience, you decided to go. How did, I saw it IMAX. It's pretty darn good, like sound quality, because it's IMAX. How was your viewing experience from home?
It was on my little 30-inch screen in my living room. It wasn't too bad. I didn't feel like wowed by anything. I'm sure I would have been a bit more impressed if I went to see it in the theaters, but I was a bit angry at the local movie theater, so I decided to no, I shall protest and give Disney more money.
And how do you feel about your decision? Have you since forgiven?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone back to the movie theater since. I've forgiven movie theaters. I still feel pretty good about my decision because it only cost $30 for the premiere access, and I probably would have spent that much on 2 tickets to go see it. So I'm okay with my decision.
Yeah, you're right. $30 is about right. And all right, well, good. I'm glad you had your little protest, and what. Good for you sticking to what you believe in, man. I support you, as friends do. So rock on. Let's jump into this bad boy with synopsis.
Yeah, before we dive into today's episode, we feel a little obligated to provide a spoiler warning since this is a newer release. But if you wish to keep your experience spoiler-free, please stop listening here. But otherwise, whatever happens is on you. All right, so synopsis of Black Widow. Following the events of Captain America Civil War, Natasha Romanoff is on the run when the mysterious forces behind her creation reemerge and is forced to confront the horrors of her past. She must reunite with her broken family to defeat the horrors and save the world from the shadows that threaten to uncover.
Ooh. And the plot thickens.
The plot thickens, yeah. A lot of espionage, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of like stuff that's behind the scenes of the MCU that kind of goes unnoticed. I mean, we get so wrapped up in the big spectacle, the big villains that come from outer space, or the ones that have a true chance to destroy humanity. We kind of overlook the the ground level threats.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as with Marvel films, the one-offs when they're not these huge, Avengers Unite films, I kind of like those a little bit better because it brings the film down to more of a digestible scale, where it doesn't seem so fantastical, where it's completely unbelievable. I know Winter Soldier to me is like one of those films where it's global, but it's more behind the scenes-esque, And I think with this film, it was nice to kind of dive back into those types of movies as opposed to, Endgame and Infinity Wars, which are great in their own merit, but it's a little bit different sauce.
Yeah, and I actually just watched Captain America the Winter Soldier, And yeah, I totally agree. It's refreshing to see kind of like a scaled down MCU film that still has all of the epicness we come to expect, but it's just instead of 27 characters on screen, there's 4 or 5.
Yes, exactly. So in this film, who directed this one?
It's directed by Kate Shortland, so one of the only female directors in the MCU. I think the other one was Nia DaCosta for Captain Marvel. So I think Marvel is now starting to have more females direct the movies because Oscar winner Chloe Zhao is directing the Eternals, and I think Nia DaCosta's returned to do the Captain Marvel sequel, and pretty star-studded cast as well. Scarlett Johansson obviously returns to play Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. You've got big-time star, up-and-coming star Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova. Everyone's favorite, drunken cop from Stranger Things, David Harbour as the Red Guardian. O.T. Fegabenle as Rick Mason. I hope I'm saying that name right. Former Bond woman Olga Kurilenko as Taskmaster. It was a surprise to see her show up in this movie a little bit. We've got also another returning member of the MCU. We've got William Hurt as General Thaddeus Ross. Ray Winstone, the great British accent, as Dreykov, the big baddie of the film. And finally, we've got Rachel Weisz as Melina Vostokov, the mother figure to the Black Widow's family unit here.
So on paper, pretty star-studded cast, right? You got a lot of talent there. I think you got Ray Weisz, who's or Ray Winstone. Sorry, he's fantastic. I mean, he's just one of those guys that's class actor. I mean, Rachel Weisz is great. Well, William Hurt, is he even in the film? It's like at the beginning, right?
He's in the movie for all of like 2 minutes, but he's still there.
He's still there. And then, Scarlett Johansson is great. For the new characters that were introduced, how'd you like them?
Oh man, I was a big fan of the Red Guardian. Like I thought he was perfect for this movie, and I thought Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova was absolutely fantastic. Just great new additions to the MCU. I was actually kind of hoping they would stick around for a sequel or something.
Yeah, I know. I felt the same. Red Guardian was hilarious. I mean, that guy, he was so funny. He played his role so well, and then her sister as well. Just fantastic. I just felt like they were entrenched in their roles, it was good. Nothing felt really sleepwalk through, it was very well acted, I would say.
No, everyone showed up. Everybody understood the assignment. It was refreshing to see, such commitment to the role. I mean, the accents a little bit kind of seemed like everybody was doing like a Boris and Natasha type of deal.
Yeah.
Kind of definitely leaning in hard to what we imagine to be a stereotypical Russian accent.
You're so right with that, because, I mean, it kind of shook me in a way, because I was like, wait, accents? Who are these guys trying to be? And, they went into the whole Russian, I am from Russia, Mother Russia. It was like, all right, do they all sound like Putin? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, there's other reference video that we can pull from to get an accent from. We don't all have to do the same Boris and Natasha deal. Come on.
Yes. How would this film? So it came out right now. Obviously, it was delayed, right?
The film was originally delayed. Yeah, I remember being pumped about this because this was set to come out, I think, in March of 2020, and then obviously the pandemic hit and nobody did anything fun. Nobody's really still doing anything fun 16 months later, and I remember just being disappointed. I was really hoping to see this, and it just totally delayed the entire slate of Phase 4 films that were set to come out, and it just really kind of put a bummer on the summer. And there were the plans to make this film were going back probably until 2004, And then in the early days of the MCU, like Natasha Romanoff was one of the early characters they introduced because she was brought on for Iron Man 2. And I remember there was I remember the studio was leaning one way or the other. They were going to cast either Emily Blunt or Scarlett Johansson to be Black Widow. And it's obviously still a great choice with Scarlett, but I wouldn't have been disappointed if they chose Emily Blunt.
No, I mean Emily Blunt, she's such a great actress, and we've talked about her, I think, in 3 movies now, right? 3 or 4 actually. I mean, she's just so talented. They both are really talented in their own right. I mean, Scarlett Johansson, she's in countless films. Check out Lost in Translation if you want a good one with her. I mean, they're just both incredible. So I agree with you. I wouldn't mind. It's just weird to imagine Emily Blunt as, the Black Widow. It's just weird.
I think in hindsight now that Scarlett Johansson has played the character in so many movies, it's hard to imagine anybody else playing her. But there was interest for a long time in making a Black Widow solo film. Like Joss Whedon even wanted to make a film at one point, but obviously we all find out he's a garbage human and has nothing to do with the MCU anymore, and then goes and ruins the Justice League afterwards. And then Kate Shortland was actually personally selected by Scarlett Johansson because she was a producer on the movie for Shortland to. She chose her specifically to direct this movie. So, bit of hand of fate, some providence working in there.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it coming out later may have affected? Like, do you wish with this film? Because I know when I saw it, I wished that it had come out earlier, like 2016, 2017, so we could get a better grasp on who Scarlett Johansson, like who the Black Widow was. I mean, obviously they had like Thor, Iron Man, and, Captain America during that time. That was the prime, and there's so many movies, but would you have rather had this released as opposed to Captain Marvel?
No, I think it was necessary to still release Captain Marvel when it did come out to set up the character's return in Avengers Endgame, but I would have appreciated it more if Black Widow came out in, say, like 2017, fresh after Civil War and her leaving the Avengers, whereas this film comes out now and the character has died in Endgame. And for me, the whole time I'm watching this movie thinking, oh, you're just going to die a couple movies later, a few years down the road. Like this movie really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's hard to retroactively like invest in a movie when you know that, yeah, wow, this movie is going to work out. She's just going to die a couple of years later.
I know. And it's tough to invest in a lot of Marvel films because no one ever dies. I mean, Loki's back. I mean, everyone keeps coming back, But I thought, at least for a little bit, that her sister was going to die because she dyes her hair blonde, right, for Endgame. And even that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we get is the explanation of where that weird vest came from. I mean, and because that shows up in Infinity War. But it's just, for me, it was just hard to kind of care about the movie at times because I just thought, oh, you're just going to die in Endgame. Like, why should I watch you now?
I know. And I mean, I know in this film, like, they had, like, their little thing, like, at the end credits, they're going after Hawkeye now, but it's just really weird. It was just tough. I agree. There were moments in this film, while it looked pretty, and a lot of scenes were executed well, it's just really tough to have that, it's really tough to invest in the characters when like one's going to die and then the others are probably not going to show up or, they have no impact in the actual story. Plus, like, they're not going to die. So it's just like, okay.
I mean, to echo what you were saying, I certainly did enjoy the action at some points, but I really just found myself calling out like past espionage or action films where this film borrowed things from, and by the end of it, it was just exhausting to try and keep up with everything.
Really? What are some?
Okay, so that chase scene in Budapest where the APC showed up, I mean that just reminded me of the tank chase scene in Russia from a GoldenEye. The motorcycle showing up, I mean that reminded me of a couple of Mission Impossible movies, and the fight scenes themselves just seemed like callbacks from either other James Bond movies or Jason Bourne movies. So it was just so exhausting to be calling out these past references, or and even say like, oh well, this is from this other movie in the MCU. So it really just kind of seemed like this insidious pattern of borrowing from movies within your own franchise to say, hey, look, we've got good action too.
I know. And, it's weird that they recycled. I mean, well, it doesn't surprise me because I actually read an article that Disney, for like their MCU movies, they plan out the action scenes before they even cast the film, before they even have a story written out. So it doesn't surprise me that they like borrow from quote unquote better films. I mean, no offense, but I mean, if you compare even the most recent Mission Impossible ending, which is fantastical of itself with the helicopter chase, to like the ending of this film where they're like falling from the sky from this super base. I mean, I felt more compelled in Mission Impossible than this one.
Well, yeah, and even the climax in Black Widow it's pulled directly from a moment in a James Bond film where 007 is pushed out of a plane without a parachute and now has to free fall and find a way to land safely. It's just this whole insidious pattern that's repeated in this film of borrowing from other films to say, look, we can put together a decent film too, but also Scarlett Johansson's doing all of these things.
Yeah, I know. And it's just, I don't know. It almost feels like kind of a waste of her character because it seems to me like the Black Widow was the least interesting character in this whole film. Like her family, some of the best parts of this film were when they were together in the family unit. Like it's a weird film. Like there's moments where it's really good. The opening scene was great with the plane taking off, and it was really curious. And the espionage scenes where you're learning about her when she's having communication, like her relationships with people. That was the interesting stuff. It just, to me, felt like the most boring parts of the film were the action scenes.
Yeah, I mean, but like you were saying, I mean, the characters, the other ones were not boring at all. And like, we got to talk about the Red Guardian again, I think, like, because honestly, I think he was the best new character in this movie, bar none.
Without a doubt. He was so funny. His character growth and just everything. Do you think he chose to be in the prison instead of escaping?
That was actually something I was wondering, like what he did to merit winding up in a Siberian prison. He must have done something, or it must have been, a regime change in Russia that, didn't want reminders of the old regime, so they just threw him in a prison and forgot about him.
Yeah, I wasn't certain about it either because I thought I thought they mentioned it in the movie. I couldn't remember because when they were searching, Black Widow wanted to get to the guy, the head boss man, so she asked Guardian. He's like, I don't know. I wasn't friends with him. You have to ask Rachel Weisz's character, because she worked for him and everything. He just threw me in prison after, like he was done with me. It was like, well, why? Like, and I felt like the Red Guardian was strong enough to escape the prison if he really wanted to.
I mean, he could have, but maybe he just had a pretty cushy life there, breaking guys' wrists in arm wrestling matches and, getting favor from the guards and being treated like a king there. I mean,
right?
maybe that was a pretty good setup for him. You never know.
Probably, well, yeah, telling lies about battles that he fought in. I mean, he didn't have to worry. His life was taken care of, basically.
Well, let me ask you this, too. Like, how interested would you be in seeing the Red Guardian and David Harbour return, like, in some way to the MCU?
Oh, I think it would be interesting. Very interesting as a film. And I hope with the future films that they do something like that. With Black Widow's sister, I mean, I really do. Because his character, like you said, and I agree with you, was the most interesting. He was funny. I mean, his action scenes weren't too terrible. He just had that dynamic. And I think he was there were two. He's one of the two males in this film that isn't portrayed as like a sex offender or like a horrible, deplorable, human being. I mean, he was stupid. He's very dumb, but he doesn't get his comeuppance.
Honestly, I would like to see him return in like a prequel series that'd be on Disney Plus. I mean, because he mentions like there I was fighting Captain America. Like, it's not outside the realm of possibility. If the Red Guardian was doing covert stuff in the '80s, there could have been like another covert Captain America. I mean, we saw that established in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier with Isaiah Bradley's character and him being Captain America during the Korean War. So it's entirely possible there was a secret Captain America in the 80s nobody knew about that was fighting, doing covert missions in Soviet Russia.
See, I think that would be cool. And I'm sure they could put a series out if he's not too busy. Because this Stranger Things, is that still going? Like, is that still a thing?
Oh yeah, we got one more season so far. Hopefully that comes out this year. Fingers crossed.
All right, so I think it's plausible for a future film or a TV series, at least with Red Guardian. I don't see why not. That would be kind of intriguing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe you find a way to like have a more compelling villain because honestly, like Dreykov as the villain here, I mean, this like that twist just lacked a lot of punch. And his return was just being teased the entire time. And his daughter being revealed as Taskmaster like could have been much bigger. And it really should have been. And I feel like it was a disservice to like that character because Taskmaster actually is a pretty compelling villain. And I don't know, I just got the feeling that Marvel is just being set up to have another villain problem in like that plagued their movies for almost 10 years before they figured it out.
Well, they don't take time to invest in the characters at all or write a good villain role. I mean, Taskmaster has every reason to hate Black Widow, even if she wasn't under mind control, right? For messing up her face, all of that. And I just think I don't know, it was so underwhelming. The final battle with her, just everything. It was just so underwhelming. Even the boss battle with Ray Winstone, I think. He just, right? I'm saying that right?
Yeah.
All right, even with him, I mean, I don't know. It just felt, I don't know. It just felt so underwhelming. Like this whole film, you're waiting for Black Widow to meet him and like literally kick his ass. But then it's just so, I don't know. It's so underwhelming. She breaks her own freaking nose so she can't smell the fragrances. Even his death was underwhelming. Blowing up in a helicopter. I really felt in this film, he needed to be like stabbed, have a brutal like death where you could see the pain in his face, Like, it needed to be more satisfactory in my eyes, but it wasn't.
Yeah, a more fitting death would have been to like have him being, ripped apart by his creations or something. But like that would have been, something a bit more poetic. But I think to have, Antonia, Dreykov's daughter in there, like she should have been a larger part of the flashbacks or should have been a larger part of Natasha's past narrative as a spy. Like maybe she and Antonia were in training together and just their paths diverged for some reason. And to have her, like, I'm not disappointed that she was made Taskmaster for this film, but Taskmaster is a very prominent villain in the comics themselves, and he's basically gone up against every villain, or excuse me, every hero that you could imagine. Like he's gone up against Thor, Ant-Man, Spider-Man, the Punisher, like every single hero you can think of on the Marvel roster, Taskmaster has fought. And to just be here in this one film for all of maybe like 10 minutes is a rather gross misuse of the character.
I totally agree. They could have had such a better dynamic, better chemistry, just overall a better background. Because all you get is the little flashback. Oh, she was the, she may have died in the explosion when Black Widow tried to kill him. And it just, I don't know, I think that just wasn't enough. That's why I thought like she wasn't under the mind control. She actually hated Black Widow. Because I'm like, all right, there's some motivation. You messed up my face. All this. I have to be in the suit to survive or some crap like that. Something more instead of I'm just under the spell of my dad. I don't know. It was just such a letdown.
Well, and this is kind of telling too because, I mean, as far as I can tell, the rest of the MCU films that are set to come out this year, Shang-Chi, the Eternals and Spider-Man No Way Home, I think like Marvel is definitely set up to have a real villain problem in its movies over the next several years, because I don't know who the villain is in Eternals. That hasn't been teased yet. I mean, Shang-Chi just looks like it's, father fighting against son. And Spider-Man No Way Home, I mean, if the rumors are true that it is, set in the multiverse, and it's going to be villain overload is what's going to happen in that film. So I really feel like that there is a big problem heading into the future for Marvel films and its villains.
Well, maybe it's just I think they're playing into the formula a little bit too much. And that's like the problem, because Marvel had a villain problem for a while. Well, their films weren't as formulaic until like in the past, like 2015, 2016 is kind of when the villains became really formulaic, and the films became became formulaic. And this film just felt exactly like it. Like, you have the weird comedic parts that didn't make sense, and then the weird action scenes that just went on too long. Like when Black Widow met her sister, for the first time in the apartment, and then they have this long 2-minute fight, like, that ends up being nothing. I just wish it would have, like, even in the afterwards, I'm like, the scene would have been so much better if they just pointed the weapons at each other and you were uncertain if they were actually going to shoot each other or not, and it was really intense. It was just this really, oh my god, are they actually going to kill each other? And then they put down the weapons and like talk. That would be a better scene than this crazy 2-minute, 3-minute battle that means nothing. Like, I just wish they would do more of that, more talking, more development, as opposed to more, crash and boom. Because, I don't know, but it's weird. These films, I don't even know who they're made for, to be honest with you. Kids, adults, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Black Widow is for kids. I mean, like the Avenger films those are definitely made for kids. But Black Widow, I would say that's more kind of geared towards the more adult crowd of the MCU that enjoys films like Captain America, The Winter Soldier, or Iron Man 3, and they really want, a more scaled down Marvel film. Focus on one character, enjoy the ride with them, and then not expect to see, Thor or Iron Man show up or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that. I guess, but it didn't feel like it, at least to me. There just wasn't as much cost. And I think for films like this, espionage, there needs to be blood. And that's why I'm confused, like, who this film was made for. Because I think, honestly, they should have made it R. Because that's why this film, to me, was, like, lacking any grit. They didn't have any blood. Like, it wasn't, it was too clean. Even when the girl gets stabbed in the stomach, there's nothing. Like, there's no blood. It's like, how? Like, I mean, I get it. Yes, organs. There's not like a bleeding area there, so there's not going to be much blood. But even like the girl falling, I mean, it just didn't. I don't know. I wish there was more. It felt like a PG film, but they talked about women's uteruses getting ripped out.
I mean, the MCU is going to get R-rated films at some point. Like, I think the next Deadpool movie is going to be an R-rated film, and then whenever we get the Blade reboot in the MCU, that's going to be an R-rated for sure. Because how are you going to do, a vampire hunting movie that's not rated R?
Hopefully. I mean, I think they're going to try it with Deadpool first and see, how the stockholders react to it. And the producers and the box office, and then if Deadpool makes actual money and they let Ryan Reynolds actually do what he's supposed to be doing, like take control, and it makes money, then I think they'd be willing for Blade. But it's all about money for Disney. It's not about quality.
Another thing that we should probably talk about too. I mean, we recently did an episode on Avengers: Age of Ultron. And now we kind of thought that was the last standalone film in the MCU. And since Black Widow kind of has this weird in-between quality between Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War, has Black Widow kind of taken over that title as a true standalone film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I think so. Or at least the most recent one, for sure. Because I mean, she's not tied, anymore because Scarlett's done. So yeah, I would say so.
I mean, but does this one have the same rewatchable quality that Age of Ultron has, though?
No, no. I wouldn't. I don't know if I would rewatch this film, to be honest with you, because I think it's not. It doesn't have like Age of Ultron with many of its flaws. There is a good film in there. It just got lost, I think, at the producers, and the writers and in the Disney machine. I think Age of Ultron is actually a good film, but it got chopped. Whereas with this one, it just feels like the director didn't know what she was getting into. They got her and they're like, you can direct. And she kind of took out, it was like, oh crap, this film is already in the machine, in the formula, I'm just here to do 5 scenes. It kind of felt like Ready Player One, where Spielberg was there for 12 days and then the rest was CGI.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's certainly a bit disappointing to see this film get hyped up so much over what's basically been a lost year for the Hollywood film industry, and then this is kind of like the finished product that we get. I mean, it exceeds expectations, but it also manages to disappoint at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the director, she's an indie director, and I don't really know much about her films, but it seems like her bread and butter is in films with women, empowerment, and struggle. And you can see that in the scenes where they have the family dynamic that are really good, but then it just, I think she didn't direct any of the other scenes. It wasn't her choice. They had another director on their second unit taking care of them.
Well, that family dinner scene where Milena brings in the pig and then tells it to stop breathing, I was freaking out because she's not gonna kill the pig, right? She's gonna save the pig.
Yeah,
the pig's not gonna die.
Oh, I know. Even that one. I mean, it kept your suspense. Wait, wake it up, wake it up. It's gonna die. Which, thankfully, we narrowly avoided a red shirt there.
And that's a good segue into choosing our red shirts for Black Widow. Did you have a red shirt for the movie, Sean?
There's too many, man. All the guys that died. I mean, I would say for me, the red shirt, the initial red shirt was the female that got stabbed through the stomach. Yeah, or no. There's so many. There's two of them. The two spies that they wanted to save, right? The one that initially got stabbed and then saved Natasha Romanoff's sister, and then the other one that fell off the roof. Because both of those, it's like oh, they could have been an asset to the team, and you feel bad when they died. So I felt for that. How about you?
Now I'm gonna have to agree and say the Red Room assassin that Yelena kills and receives the antidote from, that was my choice of red shirt, because I think her name is mentioned in the briefest of moments, but for the life of me I couldn't remember what it was. She was just that forgetful. All I know is she gave Yelena the antidote and was free from the Red Room.
I know. And you're like, okay, she may be a good character in this, but nope. They kill her off, and I was kind of bummed with that. I really was. So I'm glad we agree. Wow, we agree on the red shirt. Hey. Do you have any freaking lens flares? Did anything piss you off?
I think the one thing that frustrated me was Natasha's flirtation with the former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, Rick Mason, who got her all of these fancy things and equipment and all that. And, I mean, to be honest, I would have liked it more if their relationship just wasn't so shallow in the film, because it just seems transactional to me. Natasha calls in, how many favors does she have with Rick Mason that he manages to get her a trailer and a car in the middle of nowhere, and then gets her a freaking Quinjet at the end of it? What connections does this guy have, and what sort of favors does he owe her? What is happening here?
Oh my God, dude, I am right there with you. Yes, that he was, and then the ending crazy scene with her falling from the sky. I mean, and the battle in the apartment. Those are my big three scenes. I was like, what the heck? But with him, it just that's what happens when you make a character like cartoon, man. Like there was something there, and I wish they would have explored it because it would have made Natasha interesting as a person, right? Because we get to learn about her love. Like, why isn't she? She's flirting with him. Does she date him? Like, why? If she doesn't, what is her trust issues? Like, what has happened? You know, like, let's go. Let's have the scene. Let's have that dialogue. Let's explore. But it just ended up being like a joke. And it's like, come on. That's why I say she's the most boring character in the film.
Oh, man. Well, that was what bothered us. Do you want to hear what bothered the internet in this latest edition in This Week in Toxic Fandom?
Oh, do I?
So, the opening scene set in 1995 shows Yelena playing with a My Little Pony plushie of a style which was not released until the mid-2010s.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me?
I have a feeling there was some brony out there or something who was watching this movie, noticed the plushie model they were using, and went, "That's not right. I know when that came out," and just took to the internet like like bronies do.
It's the 40-year-old men that go to show up to this freaking movie, man. They're like they go to Comic-Con, not to hate on Comic-Con, but they show up to this movie and they're like, "Brah, brah." It's like, come on, man. It's a pony. It's literally a toy.
It's a stuffed pony. Who cares anyway?
And probably to get an actual one from the 90s is like super expensive, I'm sure.
I mean, I don't know the history of My Little Pony. Like, I don't care enough to research that. So, there you go.
Same. It's just, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Unfortunately, I have no toxic fandom because my internet and my new apartment hasn't started yet. So I have not been able to look over, but that is a fantastic one. That makes me laugh. Did you hear? I did hear though something that they tried to get Robert Downey Jr. to appear in this film, but they didn't want him to because they didn't want to have like Black Widow looking weak going to a man for help. I don't know. Did you hear anything about that, or is that just fake news?
I heard rumors that he was set to appear in this film in some capacity. I mean, and it just never happened. And to be honest, like I was kind of glad we didn't get a cameo from any sort of bigger MCU hero because, like you were saying, it just would have been so distracting. It wouldn't have been Black Widow anymore. It would have been like a Thor in Black Widow movie. It would have been Captain America in Black Widow movie. It wouldn't have. The focus would have been taken away from her as a character.
Yes. And you know what? Didn't they did establish that though with her sister anyways in the apartment? Like, why can't you just call the Avengers to come save you? You know, they're busy. They got stuff going on too. So I think you're right. You're right because it would just take it out. It would be like Harrison Ford showing up in the Rise of Skywalker. Oh wait, he did.
Which of course he did.
Oh God. So. Anything else on your mind that you'd like to chat about this film before we go into the legacy, or I guess the now box office?
No, let's dive right into how the film is doing right now. All right, so right now, Black Widow's got an 81% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and 67% on Metacritic, so pretty solid, consistent ratings all around across the board. It managed to gross $80 million its opening weekend, and so far, at the time that we're recording this, has raked in considerably more. I mean, its total gross for the opening weekend was $138 million, and as of the time that we're recording this, it's crossed that to get into $344.5 million, and that was against a $200 million budget. Now, we don't have firm numbers on that, whether all that money is from Disney Plus Premier Access or other streaming, other revenue sources. But I mean, so far, I mean, the movie has managed to make up its budget, so hopefully it continues making money as the year goes on. And we talked about how we watched this already, and I think there's been an interesting wrinkle that's developed lately, and Scarlett Johansson is actually suing Disney right now because she's lost out on potentially like $50 million because the studio put the movie on Disney Plus.
Well, that sucks. See, that's garbage because she deserves it. And oh man, I just feel bad for her then, because I'm sure this was like the last film in her contract, and she was ready for that big payoff, and then be done with Disney. But then they just screwed her.
Well, yeah, and for this film she finally received a salary that was on par with what her male co-stars were getting beforehand. So it's disgusting to me that like it took her this long to finally get a decent salary compared to what Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans was making, and now she's got to fight for more money. It's like, just give her the money. What's wrong with that?
It's just bogus. I mean, it's garbage. It's another example of women being underpaid or screwed over by studio execs. Like, come on, just freaking let her make the box office, or maybe. Well, like I said, Disney is all about the money. If they can say stockholders do not care, they want their money. So if they can take advantage of a clause in the contract and be like, well, we could save money, then they're going to do it. So I am for certain that moving forward from this lawsuit, actors are now going to have to fight for the returns on the, streaming services as well. There's going to be some clause in there now. There's going to be a way, because this is it's incomprehensible. It's garbage. It really is.
Yeah, hopefully she comes out victorious in that lawsuit and gets the money she's owed.
I hope so too, man. I really do. Future? Do you think there's going to be not a Black Widow, but possible spin-offs? Because like I said, with the teaser at the end with Hawkeye.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yelena Belova is going to return in the Hawkeye series that's set to come out on Disney Plus later this year. I mean, and honestly, I wouldn't rule out, Scarlett Johansson in a potential return to the MCU. I mean, spoilers for Loki here, but I mean, now the multiverse is set up. So there could be a possibility out there that there is a universe out there where Natasha Romanoff is still alive. So you never know what can happen in these films.
That's right. No one ever dies. Or as Luke Skywalker says, no one's ever really gone. Wow, we're just referencing Star Wars this whole freaking podcast.
You are. You keep bringing up Star Wars,
well,
man.
I can't help it. It's bringing back memories of the rise of Skywalker, which isn't a good thing. I guess going into that, we can go into our reviews.
Yeah, so on our unique scale for the Force-Fed Sci-Fi podcast, we call it for Black Widow, we're going to rate this film either a wouldn't watch, would watch, would own, and would host a viewing party. So, Sean, what do you give Black Widow?
For me, I would rate it honestly, I would give it a would watch. I don't ever plan on watching this film again. I think Marvel fans are going to love it. It's kind of like a big, dumb, stupid action film, but it's to me, it's more disappointing than anything, because there's flashes and scenes where it's really good, like I've said before, but it's just ultimately, I think it's bogged down to just a lousy writing, or a lousy screenplay, and then just overhyped, overdone action scenes that just don't make sense, that go on way too long. So I would put, for me, it's like a cross between wouldn't watch and would watch. I think you have to see it once, but you're probably never going to see it again. So that's about me. How about you?
I'm going to agree with you here, and I'm going to call this a would watch as well. And I think I did enjoy the movie in many moments, but it manages to lag considerably in the second act, and it makes the film seem much longer than it is. I mean, but the cast has got great chemistry all around, but there's these insidious action scenes that we've talked about, and it's just, I can't get over the death of the character in Avengers Endgame. It just manages to permeate and put a stink on this movie that you just can't wash off and forget. And Ray Winstone, as great as an actor as he is, he's a completely unremarkable villain in this film, and I think those aspects of it prevent this movie from being a truly great addition to the MCU. So yeah, I think if you're doing an MCU marathon, this is a good one to watch, but outside of that, not really. So I'm gonna stick with my would watch rating.
Right on, brother. Well, too easy. Thanks, folks, for tuning in for this. We're about to go back to our regular scheduled films, right? Planet of the Apes series, unless something else comes out that we want to check out.
Well, I mean, it's the summer season, so I mean, let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, real quick, before we sign off, I guess we could, for a brief second, the science in this film, because we're force-fed sci-fi. What was the science in this film? Mind control. You think it's possible?
I actually didn't look into whether mind control would be possible for this film. I mean, but given how the CIA failed spectacularly at MK Ultra, I would say no. Mind control is not possible.
Oh, there you go, folks, for our science of the week. Oh, thank you so much. I'm gonna agree with you there. Too easy. Well, Chris, take it away, my good sir.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, and we know that you did, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps to drive us up the charts as well as help people like you find the show. We are across the spectrum of social media with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at ForceFed Sci-Fi. You can check out and download episodes from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you find podcasts. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Finally, you can check out our website, forcefedsci-fi.com, for show notes and links to all of our social media. So for all of us at the ForceFed Sci-Fi team, we'll see you next time.